Good day and welcome to another fantastic edition of 360 Sport. It's one of the moments you need to watch in regards to all that has to do with sport across the globe. Like we do on the show, we always start with issues that are from the local scene before we look into international, and that's a way of promoting our local sports so that we can be in the same level with other sports. My name still remains the same. I'm Mudashiru Shitu, and I'm here in the next there are about 30 minutes to give you exciting moment in the world of sport. Let's not forget this week has been a lot of issues that has to do with the Nigerian Football Federation. And just some days back, we have FIBA World African qualifiers right here in Nigeria at the National Stadium. And yours sincerely and the sporting crew were there live to give you all that went down on that particular day. Yet, don't go away. We're going on a quick break right now. When we come back, I have a special guest in the house and we'll be looking at all these numerous issues that is affecting our sport. Welcome back. Like I said earlier, I'm not doing this alone. I have my special guest, Kevin Ekerete in the house. Kevin, it's good to have you here.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Muda.
Interesting. Kevin has been one of the journalists that have been following trends of stories as regards to Nigerian sport. But just some days back, while we thought it was over, the Nigerian leadership talk-show has started again, and that has to do with the Nigerian Football Federation. And we had stories coming out from the Sport Ministry, and also, in particular, the Minister of Sports, Solomon Dalon, issued a statement through his media in sport, brought about a letter from the Supreme Court ordering that the election that brought in about Amaju Pinnick in 2014 is null and void. That means from some days back ago, Amaju Pinnick is no longer the president of the Nigerian Football Federation. But Amaju Pinnick right now is in Russia while this is going on. And we have the man that has always been battling with him, the man we taught the sport abbreviation, court of abbreviation in sport, has actually put him aside. We talked the ban FIFA gave him will actually stop him from dabbling issues of sport. The man they call Barrister Chris Giwa is now, I don't know whether it's unofficial or not, but he is presently occupying the glass house now. Kevin, what's your take on this issue?
Well, I think this is an issue that has been bothering the sport for a very long time. For a particular time, it became what we just didn't want to see again in sport. People stopped reporting the issue of Chris Giwa coming into office, and any small thing it goes to the just cause, come back and say, okay, we need to take office. Remember when this current Minister of Sport came into office, the moment he did that about 2 years ago, he called both parties, that's Chris Giwa as well as Amaju Pinnick, to a round table for them to discuss and sort out a way forward for the Nigerian Football Federation in general. And we know it ended in a fist fight where they just had to move their own way. So, but this period, I still do not understand why we're having this issue, and the Minister of Sports has made it known for a while now that he's a Minister of Football, because before he came in, this became an issue we didn't really used to talk about, because after FIFA gave Chris Green a ban, you know, we stopped hearing about this for a very long time. Then the minister brought this up. We do not know why, but it's up now, and it came out on Monday to say that the NFF, the Supreme Court, that was on June 7th, came out with an injunction that Amaju Pinnick should vacate office, and the election that happened on August 26th, that was in 2014, at Chida Hotel, that brought in Chris Giwa, an election most people know only had Chris Giwa as the person contesting, and as well as Michael May back then. So we do not understand why this came into play, why it has to be now. But we all understand that anytime we have the World Cup, because immediately after the World Cup, the NFF election comes up. We're always having stories like this, but I'm not sure it's been this bad. But the other side, the other party, Festus Keyamo, the lawyer to the Nigerian Football Federation, and Amaju Pinnick, they've come out with their own side of the story, saying that we need to avoid the FIFA ban and we need to go with what FIFA has created down, because Chris Giwa took his case to CAS. That was back then, and it was thrown away.
They're thrown away.
Yeah.
It was
So
even banned for
yeah,
some
it was
games.
even banned for from football
Football
activities
activities.
for a very long time. So we do not know why this is coming, but of course we know there are some implications to this, and
Yeah.
we need to avoid that definitely.
Yeah, yeah, we need to avoid that. But what the minister said that he's the law-abiding citizen, that he's going to obey the court. And we saw the court letter telling us that Chris Giwa is now the president, that Amaju Pinnick to vacate office. And he, representing the court, he doesn't want to go against the court. How sincere is the court order? And we know that FIFA doesn't want interference of court issues that has to do with football. We are in between the Devon and the Deep Blue Sea. So what's your take on this?
Well, first of all, looking at the court letter, looking at the court's injunction, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not in the best place to interpret that, and that's left for the lawyers. But I've seen one or two interpretations of this letter. One, the Supreme Court earlier told Chris Giwa to go back to the Just Court. And of course, that was where we were before the World Cup. Then after that, he went back to the court. And the court listened to just one person. That's from interpretations from the lawyers I've spoken to and those I've listened to. So it's a case of the Amaju Pinnick-led board to come back and go back to the court. So Chris Giwa moving to the office, I think that's not even what the court said. The courts, first of all, will have to listen to both parties before they make their decision. But one other thing we need to understand is that FIFA is an independent body. FIFA does not go with the law of Nigeria.
Yeah.
Before you decided to join FIFA, they gave you their rules, their regulations, their terms, things you need to follow. And for you, like Muda, I have a rule. You want to come to my house, I tell you, Muda, when you come to my house, after eating, you can't just leave the plate lying. You can't sleep in the guest room. You have to go upstairs to sleep. And you say, okay, yes, I'm going to abide by your rules and regulation. You're not going to bring the rules you know from your own house into my own house. So FIFA does not go with the rule of the civil court.
Yes, civil court, yeah.
FIFA on its own is even, they have the population of FIFA, if FIFA were to be a country, is even more than the population of Nigeria, because over 200 countries are affiliated with FIFA.
Yeah.
And Nigeria is also a part of FIFA. So we live, football in Nigeria lives by the rule of FIFA, but we can't just take away the fact that the NFF is a parastatal under the sport ministry, and the sport ministry is a body of the federal government of Nigeria. So we can't take away that politics, but we need to understand that there is a line, and it's very thin. The moment you cross that line, you get sanctioned, you get penalized by FIFA. So since we as a country decided to affiliate with FIFA, we need to obey the rules, the regulations, and the guidelines of FIFA, which says you can't go to a civil court for a footballing matter.
Yes, let's not remind how the case started. Chris Giwa actually went to High Court in Jos, and from there, the ruling was in favor of Chris Giwa. Amaju Pinnick also went to Court of Appeal, and that Court of Appeal actually gave in favor of Amaju Pinnick before the Supreme Court actually said that the case you're talking about, Appeal Court has no right to actually judge on that. So standing with the High Court in Jos that was in favor of. But how do we continue saying, how bent on do we continue saying Chris Giwa? Do you think Chris Giwa is coming, he's so bent on being the NFF president? Why should a man really give so much of his energy in something it loses all the time?
One thing we need to understand is that these are two separate elections. An election was held, facilitated by Chris Giwa. That was held on August 26, 2014. The election that brought in Amaju Pinnick was held on September 30
in Warri,
2014. So these are two separate elections. And there are some, but see, I think the major problem we have is that there was no reconciliatory ground for the two of them.
But I thought the sport minister did that immediately, but it didn't end up well.
The funny thing, one thing we need to understand first of all is that Amaju Pinnick Giwa didn't lose to Amaju Pinnick. It's a separate election, and Chris Giwa, God knows what he wants, says he's not going to go for another election. It's just like the case we had in basketball. But what the difference now is that, say, CAS, FIFA, has already made Amaju Pinnick the legitimate president of the NFF. thereby cancelling
Whatever election.
the election you had before then. So the courts, and we see all this is just based on, it's just like the FIFA hammer just sliding over Nigeria, just moving around, waiting for it to just hit. See, Nigeria is not that big when it comes to football. Bigger countries have been sanctioned. Remember back then, Spain had an issue with FIFA, and they were threatened. They had to, step back. Sudan's government removed the president of their FA, and FIFA banned them. They told them, if you don't bring this person back, the ban continues. And it was like that for a very long time. So it's not as if we are that big a country
that we can't be
See,
banned.
remember in 96,
Yeah.
we were banned. We didn't go for the AFCON in South Africa back
Yeah,
then
we didn't, yeah.
due to the military rule we had back. See, FIFA will ban you despite the fact that we won the Olympics.
Okay.
We didn't go. So it's not that we need to sort our house. This is not a matter when people say leadership tussle. I tend to disagree. Let's say back then.
So now you don't want to believe that. Sorry for taking that from you. You don't want to believe that Giwa is a faction of Amaju Pinnick.
No, people call it faction, but this election didn't even hold at the same time. So what Giwa wants is to say that the election that brought in Amaju Pinnick is flawed. But this was an election. This was an election that other people even took part in.
We also know that before you have to be the NFF president, you have to be a state FA chairman before you are qualified. But Kisgua is not an FA chairman.
You know, the rules change.
Okay.
The rules keep changing. You have to be an FA chairman. You have to be a member of the board. You have to be a member of the rules keep changing. See, one problem we have, Mudashir, is that the process of the election is flawed. We have a whole lot of corruption in the system, people saying this and that. We need to have a proper way of conducting this election. Let's bring in free, fair people. The electoral body on its own is supposed to be independent, but most of us know that, okay, these bodies are not independent. And if you have a problem with an election, there is an independent body, the appeals committee. You go there, you appeal to them. This is the case I have. But the reason why we've had this problem, just like I said earlier, is that we had two separate elections. If it was an election where Pinnick defeated Giwa, probably Giwa would have gone to the appeals committee. But Giwa is standing on the election that took place on August 26th in Chida. So now you understand the problem.
Yeah,
so it's not a matter of going to this or that. The problem is that we had two separate elections and one person is claiming legitimacy over the other one.
That's a very good point from you. But let's look at the implication of FIFA ban. What are we going to lose if the hammer falls on us? But a lot of people have been saying because of the closeness of Infantino to Amaju Pinnick that will likely not be getting the ban. And moreover, the election of the voting office of Amaju Pinnick in September will actually, the tenure will end. But let's look at the ban, the implication of what we are doing from FIFA's angle.
But when you're talking about ban, it's just like giving someone a sack letter. If you get a sack letter from where you work or you resign for where you work, you don't go back there. You don't have anything to do with that company at that period of time. So when peradventure, I'm not saying we're going to get banned. No one wants to see Nigeria get banned. The implication is worse than we imagine. Okay, thank God the World Cup is over. Okay, the Super Eagles players will go back. But you talk about the league. The league will go down.
Okay.
Because it's the transfer window now, and if FIFA decides to ban Nigeria now, that means no player playing in the Nigerian league will be able to leave, will be able to get transferred to the foreign scene, to Europe, to America, to other African countries. Our football remains here, and it does not move. We look at the national under-20 team. They are bound for France to play the World Cup in France. They won't be able to go for that. Nigeria we still have the AFCON qualifiers to be played. 1 or 2 games will be played this year. We won't be able to play that. And another thing is that the Super Falcons are supposed to be at the African Women Cup of Nations in December. That's from November to December in Ghana. That's not going to happen. That means it's going to cripple everything that has to do with football in the country. And you know how passionate Nigerians are about their football. We may say people do not follow the women's league, nobody watches
But
these
to
games,
affect the
but it
players.
will affect the real actors. We're talking about, I mean, administrators, not doing well for these players. The players are the real people. They are the ones earning money, while some of these administrators are just there for selfish reasons.
Okay, yeah. To support your point before we go on a quick break right now, Onigbinde actually said, and I quote, that he wants FIFA ban to be on us so that we can really restructure and reposition ourselves. That's a very respected administrator, and they say, do you go in line with what Chief Onigbinde said?
So how are we going to restructure it when we are under the ban?
Yeah.
Because if we are under the FIFA ban, then governments will probably need to bring in people to look into football in Nigeria. Then it's going to be difficult later to take it off the hands of the government. See, what Pinnick has been doing right now is he's been trying to bring in a private sector into the game, little by little trying to disentangle himself from government dependence. We saw that going into the World Cup. The Minister of Sport decided to create a fund to take Nigeria to the World Cup. But you know how many people invested into Nigeria going into the World Cup. You know, we can't mention the names right here because of brand, but you see the NFF signing a deal today, signing a deal tomorrow. And most people do not like Pinnick.
Though we know that some of those deals, they're not actual figures given to us anyway.
Not actual figures given to us anyway. But I think I can't toe the line of Onigbinde. Even if we go on the ban, does that mean we're going to restructure our football? I think we should all call in our stakeholders. Let them bring in their points. Let them, join heads together and see how we can move forward instead of, allowing FIFA banners.
That's Kevin for you, and that's why you need to watch 360 Sport Enlightenment. It's one thing you don't miss on the show. We're going on a quick break. We'll be checking after the break. We'll be looking into basketball. Kevin is still the house, and I'm sure you're not changing any doubt. You're still watching us. And for those dropping your comments on Facebook, keep doing that. That's definitely we appreciate to you, and all those on Twitter, Instagram pages, everything you've been doing on our social media, and to make sure you keep viewing this. Continue doing that. But we're going on a quick break. When we come back, we talk about FIBA. Yeah, welcome back. We could go away from NFF issues. We hope as update comes on that issue between Chris Giwa and Amadou Pinnick. Amadou Pinnick has not altered the word on that, though his through his lawyer, Festus Keyamo, senior advocate of Nigeria, has said so much on the crisis going on right now. When he comes back from Russia, perhaps his first word on that issue will let you know that. So keep abreast with us. Away from that, we'll be looking definitely at the FIBA African qualifiers. It's a long time since FIBA African World Cup qualifiers actually took hosted by Nigeria some weeks back at the National Stadium. We've not seen such the look of the stadium actually changed because of this wonderful event, and Nigeria did so well in that. The Tigers for us.
Well, the Tigers have, they've done very well. This, just like you mentioned, this is the first time in a very long time. I can't remember the last time Nigeria hosted a qualifier as an international game in basketball. It's been a very long time. Countries like Benin Republic, Togo, way smaller than Nigeria, they host international tournament. But one other thing is done for us is, apart from the business-wise that day, because when I was there for 3 days, I saw people coming in to sell to the players and all that, and it was indeed very massive. But you need to see the indoor sport hall of the National Stadium now. It's been refurbished. Everywhere looks clean. Light everywhere. This is a place where they used to play basketball, and you find it difficult to even use your camera in it. So, but now I think it's better. But for the D Tigers, they played 3 games. They won all 3. The list was when they defeated Mali by 93 to 53. The rest was over 100. I think it's an improved side now. Even to know that we've gotten past the second phase of our qualifiers without some of our best players is a boost for me. We have the likes of Alade Aminu, we thought was going to be in this squad, but he had visa issues, he couldn't come around. Lawal Olasheni too couldn't make it this time around. Not forgetting our NBA star. Talking about Aminu Al Farouk, is being on exile from the team. So we're expecting to see him in the next phase, which is definitely going to be tougher than this ones where we run over the likes of Rwanda, Uganda, and Mali. The next phase is going to be tougher, and we expect to see the best of our players in. And one other good thing was the introduction of the son of the coach. The coach is Alex Nwora. He brought his son, Jordan Nwora. Before we started this championship, I went there to interview him, and he told me, that's Jordan, that his dad wouldn't bring him to play for Nigeria if he wasn't trusted. If you see his color, you know he's white. So he can even get to play for the US. He's still in the university, that's University of Louisville. So he can play for the US, or he can get drafted next year. But one thing Nigeria has done is to bring him back to the country. And during these qualifiers, he's been able to average a total of over 25 points in the game. The last game he played for us, he made 36. He scored 36 baskets. So I think that's a very good one. We've been relying on the likes of Ike Diogo for a very long time. And it's over 30 now. It's about 34, 35 now. It won't be there for a very long time. And the likes of Jordan Nwora, Ben Uzo coming in, I think is a good one for the national team.
Yeah, you talk like happy days ahead of us when it comes to basketball, especially the technicality of the game, how we won all those matches. And let me ask you, is this the better days ahead when it comes to basketball in terms of the championship and what's going on right now, like you rightly said?
Well, we've been having good days in basketball. Remember that just last year, our women's team qualified for the World Cup that will be taking place in Spain in September, which is a very good one. And we've been having good days in basketball. In 2015, for the first time, Nigeria won the AfroBasket, as in the men's category. We had the best of our players there. Since then, though we didn't win the last edition in 2017, we got to the finals and we lost. But I think we've been going steady. We've been moving up steady. We defeated Angola, our arch rival, which I think it's a massive one for Nigeria. So for basketball in Nigeria, one thing I want is that, you look at Alex Nwora. He played in the US. He grew up in the US. He played in college. He played high school basketball, played college basketball. He coached in the US before we brought him to Nigeria. So I think he has that experience. What he's been able to do is that we've not had some of our big stars, some big names abroad playing in the NBA. Well, Nigerians, obviously, the likes of Victor Oladipo. So we've not brought those guys there. But he's been able to bring young players,
like
those in the university, because we know that Ike Diogo won't play for won't be there for a very long time. So he's been there. Even sometimes I'm even surprised the dedication Ike Diogo has been able to give to the team, because he's been there for a very long time. He's playing in China. That's for Shanghai Blue Whales, and anytime he gets called upon, he would never say no. So I think it's time for us to gradually take him out, let him inspire the young boys. But of course, for the future, we need all these young guys.
Still, before we round up on the segment today, there's this issue of neglect of homegrown basketballers. That every time there's competition, we go for the foreign base. That he has come to stay in the Super Eagles in the national team. Do you think it's really going to help us in developing our league? By the time games comes and we only pick players from abroad, how much do you give us your support, your words in this particular trend?
Well, I think it's good to, take everyone along. You mentioned football. Back then in the 80s, we had a very good league. We had a standard league. And the bulk of our players, Segun Odegbami didn't play outside the shores of the country. He played in Nigeria. Christian Chukwu played in Nigeria when they won the AFCON back then. So for basketball in Nigeria, can you compare our league? Can you compare the standard of our league?
But don't you think we are doing too much disfavor for players that plays in the league, that anytime there's competition, we tend to look for players outside the shore of the country?
Are these competitions important to us? See, the best team, the last time we went for an African Championship club level, that was Kano Pillars. Where did they get to? They didn't even get to the semi-finals. And that's the best team we have in Nigeria.
If you don't showcase these players, what happens to the league?
Are they good enough to be showcased? Are they good enough? The CBL came some couple of years back. They brought some players from the USA. They brought some players from Angola, from across Nigeria. The way they defeated some of the Nigerian teams was really bad. And are these the players we'll take to the AfroBasket? You need to up your game. Remember when we played the US back at the 2000 at the Olympics?
Yeah,
Yes,
2012 in
2012,
London.
2012
That was
Olympics in
massive.
London. It was they beat us by over 100 points.
But you
If
can't
we
blame us. You have like of Kevin De Bruyne and all that.
Yeah, yes, that's what you talk about. So
Kobe De
when you
Bryant.
go play, guys like that, you need to go with your best. And one thing you also need to understand is the fact that we're bringing them from abroad. They are also Nigerians.
Hmm.
They are Nigerians. They're playing in the best leagues. And if you're going to play in the leagues over there, you have to go with the best players. Even a country like Belgium went to the World Cup without picking a player playing in their own country. Nigeria even took Ikechukwu Ezenwa to the World Cup.
Yeah, time flies when we have fun, and with Kevin in the house, we're looking at issues that has to do with FIBA African qualifiers, and we know definitely that the phase 2 of FIBA qualifiers is going to take place later this year, and it's going to be tougher, like more than the phase 1 we had at the National Stadium, and you can let you know categorically the outfit of the National Stadium, the indoor sport hall, has really changed, and courtesy of the present administration of the Nigerian Nigerian Basketball Federation. It's a wonderful time on the show yet now. I want to say a big thank you to Kevin for being part of the show.
It's a pleasure.
Yes, I hope we get to you soon.
No problem. We'll be around.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Kevin. Yes, on a good note, I want to say a good thank you for those who have stuck with us in the past 10 minutes, watching all these interesting stories and analysis from Kevin. And for you that have been out there dropping your comments, I want to say a big thank you once again. Don't forget, we also want to say that same time next week we'll be looking definitely at more issues. And don't forget, we'll give you updates on everything that has to do with the world sport. I'm still Memo Dashioshitu. Enjoy the rest of your day.